Welcome to Whatif tutorials. In this tutorial I'll be talking about production budgets. Production budgets in this context are budgets for the requirements of material purchases and labour, machine usage and costs, including overhead recovery. First we'll be looking at creating a production budget. Next we'll be looking at adding items to that budget. Then we'll be looking at exploding the budget into its purchased materials and labour machine operations. And finally we'll be looking at reporting in the production budgets. From the budgets menu, select production budgets. Here you see we've already got 3 budgets here. To create a new budget, you've got 3 methods of creating a budget. One is to add items, usually made items, but possibly also purchased items. And these items can be made for stock, or they can be made to order and configured here. And the next way to create a production budget is to get a sales budget, and in other words a sales budget has all the items already in it. And remember that this production budget refers only to items that are generated in the costing module. It does not include value only items that may be generated in the sales budget. So this just brings in the items that are from the item master file in the costing module. Finally, you can copy one production budget to another. This may be very useful where you want to actually experiment with changes from one version of the budget to the next version of the budget. Okay, so we will choose adding each item to the budget. So first of all, we enter a description of the budget, its effective date range, usually a budget year, and any comments you require. So now we've created budget number 4. The system automatically uses the next budget number in the cycle, which you can set that budget number at anything you want. Okay, so now that we've created this, we can go into products. I will go into an existing product production budget rather than go into a blank one. So here we have, in this particular production budget, we've got 4 items. To add another item to the budget, we simply click Add Items to Budget and select from the item master file. So we might select this item here, use. Now this item is made, it's not configured, it's made for stock, and we can bring in terms of cell units or in terms of stock units, usually the same. We might bring in 50 of those. Okay, so that'll bring in that extra item in there, and you can add items like that. Now at this point you've got all the items in your production budget and you can report on them. I will cover reports at the end, however, because the next step is to explode. So we will explode selected items, and there's 2 explosions. One is for materials, to get back to the purchased materials required to make these items. We need to know what we have to buy and from which supplier. And labour and overhead, we need to know what the labour demand is on our machines in terms of hours and dollars of labour and overhead. So first we'll do our materials explosion. Okay, so we've now exploded that materials excuse me, we've exploded the production budget into its purchase materials. Now each one of these is a summary of each particular item required. If you want to drill down further into any one of these items, you can click on the item and purchase details. So you will see here the actual item that's been generated by as it's used in trolley 25. So see if we can find one that's got more, perhaps this one, purchase details. Yes, you can see in this one we had a total for this particular AM Believe item, and here it is, it's used 3 times in one product. So these are the particular instances of the usage of the product. It shows you the gross price, the buy, currency, the local price, landing and purchase cost, and the purchase quantity to give our total cost. So those items there, 15, 20,000 about, come through to here, 19,900. Okay, so there are reports associated with that, but we'll come back to those shortly. So that's the material explosion. Yes, the next step is to explode for labour, so we'll click on labour overhead. And here we have labour requirements summarised by machine. 1, 2. Okay, you'll notice here that as well as machines, we have activity overhead items which have been created in the costing module. So the quantity here is the quantity of the driver that's been generated by the explosion of the budget. Our labour is divided into set hours, run hours, and therefore total machine hours, converted into labour hours by the mannings, and giving us a labour cost and an overhead cost. Now if we want to drill down into the details of machine M1, click operations, and we can see here each of the operations that have gone in to making the various items, so that these operations were used in this item and these operations were used in that item. And you can see the reference to the setup code, the setup hours, the run code, run hours, machine hours, labour cost, labour overhead, total. Okay, so that is the explosion of the labour. So that's really what it's all about. And the last part of this tutorial is just to run you through the reports, the reporting, going back to our production budget. First of all, we have, before we do any explosion, these are the items we've included in our budget. We've got reports, production items, budget items in report. I'll just show you what that looks like. Just got to find it first. And look for it here. That's the one. So this report here shows you each of the items that are in the report. So but it classifies them. So this is made items, made to order items. Is that one with a total. Then we come to made for stock items. Then we come to purchased to order items, and then purchased for stock items, and then a grand total of the production budget. So that's where we start, and we need to explode, or we've already seen how we can explode these made items and to order and made items for stock into requirements of purchase materials and machine operations. Okay, so there's that report. The next report here is for each item you can print a current cost for each current cost report so that you can see how that cost is made up. You can print a BOM configuration, that is the details of the bill of materials, how it's configured, and then an item specification. We'll just print this one here. So this is the made item cost report for this particular item, and it shows the materials, that is the bill of materials used, total materials cost per unit, and then the various operations in the machine operations, and then the overhead and the total cost, 39,000. So that was the total cost of the items. So when we explode the budget, this item's details will be exploded and added to requirements for other made items. Okay, so that's the reporting at the production budget level. If we go into our exploded items, go back into materials again. Here we had each of the materials, each materials required, showing the supplier, the quantity, the standard cost, total value. So there was 73,000 in our materials requirements. We have reports, we can summarize those by category, by supplier. We've already done one of those just to show you what that looks like. Materials by supplier. So this is a really brief report of each of the suppliers. So that this is telling us we have to purchase $47,000, excuse me, of materials from these suppliers. So that's a quick reference to the value from each supplier. We've also got summaries by category and summaries by item code. Now if we have a look at materials details, we can drill down by category, we can drill down by supplier. I think we've got one here. We've got this one here, material details by category. So here we have for each category, each item, each purchased item within that category. So that tells us once again for the total 47,000 what it is by category and by item within category. So those are those reports. Finally, we've got a total materials production budget. This report, materials budget. Just got to find that one. Yeah, no, that's not it. Maybe it's this one. I can't find it. Okay, I won't waste time looking for it. Total material purchases budget. Why don't we just print it? So there it is. That's the total materials by supplier. So you have the supplier and then you have the materials summarized within that, once again coming down. Okay, so they are the reports. The main function of what we've been doing, or the main purpose of what we've been doing, I should say, was to create the requirements of materials and the requirements of labour. The requirements of labour are interesting. If you are producing a sales budget, this will tell you how you are recovering your labour and overhead costs by machine, which in turn should line up with your total machine summary or total machine budgeting to arrive at your overhead recovery rates in the first place. Anyway, that is the end of this tutorial.